The wallet shouldn't have been there. I stood in my own kitchen, staring at the leather billfold sitting next to our coffee maker like it belonged there, like it had every right to exist in the space I shared with my wife of 7 years. The thing was expensive. Italian leather. Probably cost more than I made in a week installing hardwood floors. My name is Eliot Granger, but everyone calls me Eli. I fix things for a living. Broken floors, warped boards, spaces that have been damaged and need rebuilding. I'm good with my hands, good at seeing problems other people miss. Right now, I was seeing a problem I wished I could unsee. "Nessa?" I called out, setting down my tool bag near the door. Our apartment was nice, top floor of a converted brownstone with a river view, though the pipes creaked and the ceiling leaked when it rained hard. We'd stretched our budget to afford it, mainly because Vanessa insisted we needed to maintain appearances for her job at the fintech company. "In here?" she called from the bedroom, her voice tight with something I couldn't identify. I picked up the wallet. Heavy, quality. The initials DP were embossed in gold on the front. Now, I opened it, though every instinct told me I didn't want to see what was inside. Driver's license. Dax Palmer. Age 32. The photo showed a guy with perfect teeth and styled hair, the kind of man who probably spent more on skincare than I spent on groceries. "Whose wallet is this?" I asked, walking toward the bedroom. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, phone pressed to her ear, finger raised to shush me. She was still in her work clothes, sharp blazer, pencil skirt, the armor she wore to battle corporate dragons. Her dark hair was pulled back in that severe bun she favored, but a few strands had escaped, giving her a slightly frazzled look. "No, I understand the timeline," she was saying into the phone, "but we need to be realistic about expectations." She glanced at me, then at the wallet in my hands. Something flickered across her face. Panic, maybe, or calculation. I waited. 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. "I have to go," she said finally, ending the call. "Work crisis. You know how it is." "Whose wallet?" I repeated, holding it up. "Oh, that." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Kira's friend left it here earlier. She stopped by with some guy she's seeing. I told her I'd get it back to him." Kira. Vanessa's best friend since college, a social media influencer wannabe who treated our apartment like her personal hangout space. The explanation made sense, except for one thing. "Kira has a key?" I gave her mine earlier. She needed to pick up that dress she left here last week. Vanessa moved past me toward the kitchen, or her heels clicking on the hardwood I'd installed myself. "I'm starving. Did you eat?" I followed her, still holding the wallet. "When was this?" "When was what?" "When did Kira and this guy stop by?" Vanessa opened the refrigerator, studying its contents with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts. "I don't know. A couple hours ago. Why does it matter?" "Because I'd been working 3 blocks away all afternoon. Because I would have seen Kira's ridiculous pink car if she'd been here. Because my wife was lying to me, and we both knew it." "Just curious," I said. She pulled out leftover Chinese takeout, popping containers into the microwave. The familiar domestic routine felt surreal with Dax Palmer's wallet burning a hole in my palm. "How was work?" she asked, not looking at me. "Fine. Finished the Henderson job early. That's why I'm home." "Great. That's great." The microwave hummed. Vanessa drummed her fingers on the counter, a nervous habit I'd learned to recognize over the years. She was waiting for something, for me to drop the subject maybe, or leave the room. "I'll call Kira," I said. "Set up a time to return this." "No." The word came out sharp, too fast. "I mean, don't bother. I'll handle it. I'm seeing her tomorrow anyway." I nodded slowly, tucking the wallet into my back pocket. "Sure thing." The microwave beeped. Vanessa busied herself with plates and forks, creating unnecessary noise and movement. I watched her, really looked at her, trying to see past the performance. 7 years of marriage teaches you things. The way someone moves when they are comfortable versus when they are acting. The difference between genuine distraction and manufactured busyness. The subtle tells that indicate when your partner is lying to your face. "I'm going to grab a shower," I said. "Okay. Food will be ready in a few minutes." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I headed toward the bathroom, but stopped in the hallway. Through the thin walls of our old building, I could hear Vanessa talking, not to herself, but into her phone again. "He found it," she whispered. "No, I handled it. He bought the Kira story." I know. We need to be more careful." I pressed my ear closer to the wall. "Tomorrow night. Same place. And Dax, next time check your pockets before you leave." My hands started shaking, not with fear, with rage so pure it felt like electricity coursing through my veins. I gripped the bathroom doorframe, forcing myself to breathe slowly, quietly. 7 years. 7 years of working extra jobs to pay for her designer clothes and expensive dinners. 7 years of listening to her complain about my blue-collar friends while she socialized with corporate climbers and social media parasites. 7 years of being made to feel like I should be grateful she'd married beneath her station. And this whole time, she'd been planning her exit strategy. I turned on the shower, letting the sound of running water cover my movements. From my pocket, I pulled out Dax Palmer's wallet and really examined it this time. Credit cards, gym membership, business cards for something called Palmer Digital Solutions, whatever that meant. And tucked behind his driver's license, a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it carefully. Hotel receipt, the Riverside Inn, 2 nights ago, room for 2, champagne service, late checkout. The same night Vanessa had claimed to be working late on a big presentation, I sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at the receipt. The numbers didn't lie. The timeline didn't lie. My wife's nervous energy and quick explanations suddenly made perfect sense. But what really got me, what made my jaw clench and my vision narrow, was remembering how she'd come home that night, how she'd complained about being exhausted from work, how she'd barely spoken during dinner, how she'd gone straight to bed claiming a headache. She'd been with him, in a hotel room, drinking champagne and planning whatever came next while I heated up leftovers and watched television alone. "Eli," Vanessa called from the kitchen. "Food's getting cold." "Coming," I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. I refolded the receipt, placed it back in the wallet, and tucked the wallet into my jacket pocket. Then I stripped and got into the shower, letting the hot water wash away the day's sweat and grime while my mind started working. Vanessa thought she was smart, thought she had me figured out, the simple-minded floor guy who'd never catch on to her sophisticated games. She probably laughed about it with Dax and Kira, maybe even with her uptight parents who'd never thought I was good enough for their precious daughter. They were about to learn something about underestimating people. I knew floors. I knew how to identify weak spots, how to find the places where rot had set in beneath a pretty surface. I knew how to tear out damaged materials and rebuild from the foundation up. And I knew exactly how to make sure Vanessa's carefully constructed life came crashing down around her. The water ran cold, but I barely noticed. I was too busy planning. The boxing gym smelled like sweat, leather, and honest work. I'd been coming here since I was 16, back when Manny Sullivan ran it out of a basement across town. Now he owned this place outright. 3 floors of heavy bags, speed bags, and ring space where guys like me came to work out frustrations that couldn't be handled anywhere else. "You're hitting like you're angry at the bag's entire family," Manny observed, watching me pummel the heavy bag with more enthusiasm than technique. He was in his 50s, gray-haired and stocky, with the kind of wisdom that came from watching men work through their problems with their fists for 30 years. "Maybe I am," I said, throwing another combination. "Want to talk about it?" I stopped punching, breathing hard. The gym was mostly empty, just me, Manny, and a couple of regulars working the speed bags on the far side. Good. I needed advice, but I didn't need an audience. "Hypothetically," I said, unwrapping my hands, "what would you do if you found out someone was planning to screw you over?" Manny leaned against the ring post, considering. "Hypothetically? I'd make sure they regretted it." "Even if that someone was your wife?" His eyebrows went up. "Especially then. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership, Eli. If one partner's cheating, and I don't just mean romantically, then all bets are off." I told him about the wallet, about the hotel receipt, about overhearing Vanessa's whispered phone call. Manny listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. "She's planning to take you for everything you've got," he said when I finished. "That's what I figure." "So what are you going to do about it?" I'd been thinking about that all night, lying awake while Vanessa slept peacefully beside me. She'd been affectionate at dinner, asking about my day, laughing at my jokes. The performance had been flawless. "I'm going to beat her at her own game," I said. Manny grinned. "Now you're talking. What do you need?" "Information, and maybe some moral support when things get messy." "You got it. But Eli?" His expression turned serious. "Make sure you're ready for the consequences. Once you start this kind of war, there's no going back." I thought about 7 years of being talked down to, of having my friends dismissed as unsuitable, of working extra hours to pay for a lifestyle I never wanted. I thought about Vanessa and Dax Palmer laughing at my expense in their hotel room. I'm ready. The first step was reconnaissance. I drove to Palmer Digital Solutions, which turned out to be a co-working space in a trendy part of downtown. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Dax at a standing desk, talking animatedly into a headset. He looked exactly like his driver's license photo, all styled hair and perfect teeth. I parked across the street and called the main number. Palmer Digital, this is Dax. Hi, I'm calling about your social media consulting services, I said, disguising my voice slightly. I run a small construction business, and I'm looking to expand my online presence. Absolutely. I'd love to help with that. Let me ask you a few questions about your current strategy. For the next 20 minutes, Dax Palmer tried to sell me a package of services that cost more than most people's rent. He used words like synergy and brand optimization, while I took notes about his schedule, his clients, his entire business model. The guy was a fraud. Not legally. He probably delivered something resembling the services he promised. But he was selling overpriced nonsense to people who didn't know better. His client list was small, his testimonials were vague, and his revolutionary approach was basic social media management dressed up in fancy language. Perfect. Men like Dax Palmer lived and died by their reputations. Take that away, and they had nothing. I hung up and drove to Vanessa's office building. The lobby was all glass and chrome, designed to impress visitors with the company's success and sophistication. I knew the layout from the few times I'd picked her up for lunch or company events. The security guard recognized me. Hey, Eli, here to surprise Vanessa? Something like that. Is she in? Far as I know. Want me to call up? No, I'll just head up. Thanks, Jimmy. I took the elevator to the 15th floor, but instead of going to Vanessa's office, I stopped at the break room. Corporate break rooms were gossip central. I'd learned that from 7 years of company parties and office drama stories. 2 women I recognized from previous visits were making coffee and talking in low voices. Can't believe she's still married to that guy, one was saying. I know, right? I mean, he seems nice enough, but she could do so much better, especially now that she's up for the promotion. I cleared my throat. Both women turned, their faces flushing when they recognized me. Eli, hi, we were just talking about my wife, I finished. Don't worry about it. I'm curious, though. What promotion? They exchanged glances. The VP position? One of them said reluctantly. Vanessa didn't tell you? She's one of 3 finalists. Vice president. That would come with a significant salary increase, stock options, probably a relocation bonus if they wanted to move to a bigger city. No wonder she was planning her exit strategy. She mentioned it, I lied. Big opportunity. Huge. The announcement should come next week. I thanked them and left without visiting Vanessa's office. I had what I needed. That evening, I started phase 1 of my plan. How was your day? Vanessa asked over dinner, the same question she asked every night. Good. Finished up a job early, so I had some time to take care of personal stuff. What kind of personal stuff? I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen, our joint checking account, now showing a balance of 0. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. What? Where did the money go? I moved it to a new account, individual account, in my name only. You can't do that. Actually, I can. It's my money. I earned it. I figured since you're up for that VP promotion you forgot to mention, you won't need my contribution to the household expenses much longer. Vanessa's face went pale. Who told you about the promotion? Doesn't matter. The point is, you're moving up in the world. Congratulations. She set down her fork, her hands shaking slightly. Eli, I don't know what you think is happening here, but I think my wife is planning to leave me as soon as she gets a better job offer. I think she's been setting up her exit strategy for months, maybe longer, and I think she's been sharing details about our marriage with people who have no business knowing our private affairs. That's not... You're being paranoid. I pulled Dax Palmer's wallet out of my pocket and placed it on the table between us. Am I? The silence stretched out like a held breath. Vanessa stared at the wallet, her mind racing through explanations and excuses. I could practically see her weighing options, calculating risks. You went through his wallet, she said finally. I found a hotel receipt. Riverside Inn 2 nights ago. The same night you claimed to be working late. Eli, I'm not done. I kept my voice calm, conversational. I also called Palmer Digital Solutions today. Interesting business model Dax has. Overpriced services, minimal client base, lots of fancy talk about brand synergy. The kind of operation that depends entirely on word of mouth and reputation. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I'm saying I know exactly what you've been doing. I know about Dax, I know about your promotion, and I know you've been planning to dump me as soon as you don't need my income anymore. I leaned back in my chair, amazed at how calm I felt. What I'm curious about is whether you were planning to tell me before or after you moved out. She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. You don't understand? Then explain it to me. We've grown apart, Eli. We want different things. I'm trying to build a career, and you're content to stay exactly where you are forever. So you decided to cheat on me instead of having an honest conversation. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. I stood up, tucking the wallet back into my pocket. But here's the thing, Vanessa. You made a mistake. What mistake? I smiled, and I knew it wasn't a pleasant expression. You assumed I'd just roll over and take it. You assumed I was too stupid or too weak to fight back. Eli, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling, No, we can't. Because this isn't a marriage anymore. It's a business arrangement, and you've been embezzling from the company. I headed toward the door, grabbing my jacket. I'm going to Manny's gym. When I get back, I want you to think very carefully about what happens next. Where are you going with this? She called after me. I paused in the doorway. I'm going to teach you what happens when you underestimate people. Consider it a learning experience. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. At the gym, Manny was waiting with a beer and a knowing look. Phase 1 complete? He asked. Phase 1 complete. She knows I know, and she knows I'm not going quietly. How'd she take it? About as well as you'd expect. A lot of backpedaling and damage control. Manny handed me the beer. What's Phase 2? I took a long drink, thinking about Dax Palmer's overpriced consulting business and Vanessa's carefully constructed professional image. Phase 2 is where things get interesting. Kira Morrison lived in a studio apartment that cost twice what most people paid for a 2-bedroom, all because it was in the right neighborhood and had exposed brick walls. She decorated it like a magazine spread. All white furniture and carefully arranged plants, the perfect backdrop for her Instagram photos. I knew this because I'd helped her move in 2 years ago, back when I still thought she was just Vanessa's harmlessly vapid friend instead of her accomplice in adultery. Now I stood outside her building at 7 a.m, holding a coffee and Dax Palmer's wallet, waiting for her to emerge for her daily run. Kira was nothing if not predictable. Same route, same time, same overpriced athletic wear that she tagged in her fitness posts. She appeared right on schedule, blonde ponytail bouncing, checking her phone as she stretched against a lamppost. When she saw me, her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, confusion, and finally guilt. Eli? What are you doing here? Returning something that belongs to your friend. I held up the wallet. Dax Palmer, right? The guy who was supposedly at my apartment with you yesterday? Kira's face flushed. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You're the one who's been covering for Vanessa, providing alibis, probably helping coordinate their little rendezvous. I'm guessing you think it's romantic, helping true love overcome the obstacle of an inconvenient husband. Eli, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. What I'm curious about is whether you've thought through the consequences. She crossed her arms defensively. What consequences? I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen, a draft email addressed to her employer, a high-end fitness studio where she taught yoga classes. Interesting company policy about social media conduct, I said, specifically the part about how instructors are expected to maintain professional standards and positive community relationships in all their online interactions. Kira's eyes widened as she read. You can't what? Can't forward this email containing screenshots of your posts making fun of your boring married friends and their pathetic relationships? Can't include the photos you posted from that party last month where you and Vanessa were laughing about how some people settle for mediocrity? The truth was, I didn't have anything that damaging. But Kira had posted hundreds of photos and comments over the years, and she couldn't remember everything she'd shared. The possibility that she'd said something compromising was enough to make her panic. Those posts were they weren't about anyone specific, weren't they? Because I've got timestamps that correspond pretty closely to conversations I had with Vanessa about feeling unappreciated in our marriage. Conversations she apparently shared with you in detail. Kira's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I saw Vanessa's name on the screen. She's looking for you, I observed. Probably wants to coordinate your stories, make sure you're both telling the same lies. We're not... Here's what's going to happen, I interrupted. You're going to stop covering for Vanessa. No more fake alibis, no more helping her sneak around, no more playing wingman to her affair. And you're going to tell her that if she wants to leave our marriage, she can do it honestly instead of like a coward. And if I don't? I gestured to my phone. Then I start making some calls. Your employer, your landlord, didn't Vanessa co-sign your lease when you couldn't qualify on your own income? Maybe some of your other friends who might be interested to know how you really feel about their life choices. It was a bluff, mostly, but Kira's entire existence depended on maintaining her image as a supportive, positive influence in other people's lives. The threat of exposure was enough to make her crumble. "You're being cruel," she said, tears starting to form. "I'm being honest. There's a difference, though I can see how you might have trouble recognizing it." Her phone buzzed again. This time she declined the call. "What do you want me to tell her?" "Tell her the truth. Tell her that her husband isn't as stupid as she thought, and that her plan isn't as clever as she hoped." I handed her Dax Palmer's wallet. "And give this back to your friend. Tell him he left it at my apartment. Tell him I said thanks for the hotel receipt. It was very informative." Kira took the wallet with shaking hands. "Eli, please. Vanessa really does care about you. She's just confused right now, and no, she doesn't, and neither do you. But that's okay, because I'm done caring what either of you think." I walked away, leaving her standing on the sidewalk in her expensive workout clothes, clutching the evidence of her friend's betrayal. Phase 2 was already in motion. I'd spent the previous evening researching Dax Palmer's business more thoroughly. His client list was small but vocal, local restaurants and boutique shops that paid him to manage their social media presence, the kind of businesses that depended on community reputation and word-of-mouth recommendations. Palmer Digital Solutions had a website full of testimonials and case studies, most of which were vague enough to be meaningless. But buried in the fine print was something interesting, a guarantee that clients would see measurable engagement growth within 90 days or receive a full refund. I wondered how many of his clients knew they could demand their money back. I started with Bella Vista, an upscale Italian restaurant that featured prominently in Dax's portfolio. According to his website, he'd revolutionized their online presence and created authentic engagement with their target demographic. I called during the lunch rush. "Bella Vista, this is Maria." "Hi, I'm calling because I heard great things about your restaurant from Palmer Digital Solutions. Dax Palmer specifically recommended you as one of his biggest success stories." "Palmer Digital? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that name." "Interesting. Dax Palmer? He manages your social media?" "Oh, that guy. We stopped working with him months ago. He posted the wrong menu prices 3 times and never responded to customer complaints on our Facebook page." "Really? His website says you're one of his current clients." There was a pause. "He's still claiming that. We asked him to remove our testimonial when we terminated the contract." I thanked Maria and hung up, then called the next business on Dax's client list. Similar story. They'd stopped working with him, but he was still using their name and testimonial on his website. By the end of the day, I'd contacted 8 businesses. 6 were no longer clients, and the 2 that were expressed frustration with his services. I compiled everything into a detailed report and sent it to the Better Business Bureau, along with copies to each business owner showing how their names were being used without permission. Then I created a fake email account and sent an anonymous tip to the local business journal that covered the startup scene downtown. "Thought you might be interested in this story about false advertising in the digital marketing space." My phone rang while I was finishing dinner. Vanessa calling from work. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Meet me at Flanagan's in an hour." Flanagan's was the bar where we'd had our first date. Either she was feeling nostalgic, or she thought the sentimental location would make me more agreeable to whatever deal she wanted to propose. "Fine, 1 hour." I arrived early and claimed a table in the back corner where we could talk without being overheard. The place was busy but not crowded, filled with the usual mix of office workers unwinding after long days and neighborhood regulars nursing beers and watching sports on the mounted televisions. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes late, still in her work clothes but looking frazzled. Her hair was escaping from its bun, and her makeup couldn't quite hide the stress lines around her eyes. "You look terrible," I said as she sat down. "Thanks. You look smug." "I feel smug. It's been a good day." She ordered wine. Expensive wine, not the house brand we usually got. Armor for a difficult conversation. "Kira told me about your conversation this morning," she said. "Did she? How much did she tell you?" "Enough. Eli, this has gone far enough. You've made your point." "Have I? What point is that?" "That you're angry, that you feel betrayed. I get it, okay? But destroying other people's lives isn't going to fix our marriage." I almost laughed. "Other people's lives? You mean Dax Palmer's life? The guy you've been having an affair with?" "It's not an affair. It's complicated. It's adultery. The complication is that you're married to someone else." Vanessa took a large gulp of wine. "I never meant for it to happen. We met at a networking event, and we just connected. He understands my ambitions, my goals. He doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting more out of life. Unlike your husband, who's apparently been holding you back all these years. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You've decided I'm beneath you, so you found someone you think is more suitable. The only problem is you haven't had the guts to ask for a divorce. Because I knew you'd react like this. I knew you'd try to punish me for being honest about my feelings." "Honest?" I leaned forward. "Vanessa, you've been lying to me for months, maybe longer. You've been planning to leave me while pretending everything was fine. You've been using our joint finances to fund your exit strategy while I worked extra hours to pay our bills. That's not honesty. That's fraud. I never took money that wasn't mine. You took 7 years of my life under false pretenses. What do you call that?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her wine glass. When she looked up, her expression had hardened. "What do you want, Eli? You want me to grovel? You want me to beg forgiveness for falling out of love with you? I want you to face consequences for your choices. I want you to understand that actions have repercussions, and that you can't just discard people when they become inconvenient. So you're going to ruin Dax's business, destroy Kira's reputation, make my life miserable out of spite? I'm going to make sure everyone knows who you really are. No more pretending to be the perfect wife and professional woman. No more hiding behind lies and manipulation." Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face went pale. "What?" I asked. "Dax, someone sent screenshots of our text messages to his biggest client. They're threatening to cancel their contract." "Interesting. What kind of screenshots?" She showed me the phone. The messages were from 2 weeks ago. Dax and Vanessa making fun of a restaurant owner who'd complained about poor social media management, calling him clueless and pathetic for not understanding their sophisticated marketing strategy. "I didn't send those," I said truthfully. I hadn't needed to. I'd simply forwarded my research to the business owners and let them draw their own conclusions. One of them had apparently done some digging and found the messages on their own. "This is insane," Vanessa said. "You're destroying innocent people's livelihoods." "Innocent?" Dax has been lying to his clients and overcharging them for substandard work. Those businesses deserve to know what they're paying for. "And Kira? What did she do to deserve being threatened?" "Kira helped you lie to me for months. She provided cover for your affair and made me feel like I was paranoid for suspecting something was wrong. She chose to be involved." Vanessa finished her wine in one gulp. "Fine. You win. I'll file for divorce next week. We'll split everything 50-50, and you can have the apartment. Just leave Dax and Kira out of this." I shook my head. "Too late for that. Besides, I'm not done yet." "What else could you possibly want?" I stood up, dropping a 20 on the table. "I want everyone to see you the way I see you now. I want your parents, your coworkers, your friends, everyone who thinks you're so perfect, to know what you're really like when nobody's watching." "Eli, please. You should have thought about consequences before you decided to betray me. Now you get to live with them." I left her sitting in the bar, staring at her phone as more messages came in. The night was just getting started. The next morning brought rain and the first real sign that my plan was working. I was installing oak planks in a client's dining room when Manny called. "Turn on Channel 7, he said. "Business segment. Your boy Palmer is on the news." I found a live stream on my phone. Dax Palmer stood outside his co-working space, looking haggard and defensive as a reporter shoved a microphone in his face. "Mr. Palmer, how do you respond to allegations that your company has been using false testimonials and misleading clients about your success rates?" "Those allegations are completely unfounded," Dax said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Palmer Digital Solutions has always maintained the highest standards of professional conduct. We have documentation showing that 6 of the businesses listed as current clients on your website actually terminated their contracts months ago. Can you explain that discrepancy?" "There must be some mistake in our website updates. We're looking into it." "What about the Better Business Bureau complaint filed yesterday, which includes evidence that you've been charging clients for services you didn't provide?" Dax's composure cracked. "I don't know who's behind these attacks on my business, but they're clearly motivated by personal animosity rather than legitimate concerns." The reporter pressed on. "Are you suggesting this is some kind of vendetta?" "I'm saying that someone is trying to destroy my reputation using false information and taken out of context communications." I turned off the stream, grinning. Dax was panicking, and panic made people stupid. His defensive responses only made him look more guilty, and his suggestion of a personal vendetta would make reporters dig deeper into his background. My phone rang. Vanessa. "Are you watching the news?" she demanded. "Yep. Dax doesn't interview well under pressure, does he?" "This is insane, Eli. You've completely destroyed his business over a personal grudge." "I exposed his business practices. The destruction is a natural consequence of those practices being unethical." "You know that's not true. You orchestrated this whole thing because you're angry at me." "I'm angry at both of you. The difference is Dax actually was defrauding his clients. I just made sure they found out about it." There was a long pause. "The reporter is asking questions about Dax's personal life now. About his relationships? Is he? How interesting." "Eli, if this goes public, if our marriage becomes part of the story, it could affect my job. The company doesn't want that kind of publicity associated with their executives." Now we were getting to the real issue. Vanessa could handle Dax's business collapsing, could even handle Kira being exposed as a fair-weather friend, but her career was sacred. Her professional reputation was the one thing she valued more than anything else. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you started having an affair with someone in the same professional network," I said. "Please, I'm begging you. End this now, and I'll give you whatever you want in the divorce." "What I want isn't for sale, Vanessa. What I want is for you to understand what it feels like to have your life turned upside down by someone you trusted." I hung up and got back to work. The oak planks were beautiful. Honey-colored wood with a tight grain that would last for decades if properly maintained. Honest materials, honest work. There was something satisfying about building something solid while simultaneously tearing down something rotten. Around noon, my client brought me a sandwich and a cup of coffee. Mrs. Henderson was in her 70s, a widow who'd decided to renovate her house after her husband's passing. "You seem cheerful today," she observed, settling into a chair to watch me work. "Good news at home?" "You could say that. I'm learning some things about myself I didn't know before." "Such as?" I considered how to answer. I always thought I was the kind of person who avoided conflict. Turns out I'm just the kind of person who avoids unnecessary conflict. When it's necessary, I'm apparently pretty good at it. Mrs. Henderson laughed. "My late husband used to say that the most dangerous people are the ones who don't look for fights, but don't back down when fights find them." Smart man. He was. He also said that revenge is a dish best served with a side of justice. Makes it go down easier. I looked up from the flooring. "Are you encouraging me to pursue some kind of vendetta, Mrs. Henderson?" "I'm encouraging you to stand up for yourself, young man. Too many people these days think they can treat others badly without consequences. Sometimes consequences have to be delivered personally." My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. "This is Dax Palmer. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park, South Entrance, 6 p.m. Come alone." I showed the message to Mrs. Henderson. She read it and shook her head. "That boy's been watching too many movies. Come alone. What does he think this is, a spy novel?" "He thinks he's going to intimidate me into backing off." "Are you intimidated?" I thought about it. Dax Palmer was taller than me, probably worked out at an expensive gym, might even have some kind of martial arts training. But he was also soft in the ways that mattered. He'd never been in a real fight, never had to work with his hands, never faced serious consequences for his actions. "No," I said. "I'm not intimidated." "Good. But take someone with you anyway. Not because you need protection, but because witnesses keep people honest." I texted Manny. "Want to watch me have a conversation with Vanessa's boyfriend at 6 p.m.? His response was immediate. Wouldn't miss it. Riverside Park was mostly empty when Manny and I arrived. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still overcast and threatening. We positioned ourselves near the south entrance where I could see Dax approaching while Manny stayed far enough away to observe without interfering. Dax showed up 10 minutes late, probably hoping to make some kind of power play. He looked worse than he had on television. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, the kind of disheveled appearance that suggested he'd been up all night dealing with crisis management. "You came," he said, as if he doubted I would. "You asked me to. Though I have to say, the dramatic location is a bit much. We could have met at Starbucks." "This isn't a social call." "No, it's not. What do you want, Dax?" He stepped closer, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. "I want you to stop. Whatever you're doing to destroy my business, end it now." "I'm not doing anything to your business. Your clients are making their own decisions based on information about your services. Information you provided. Information you gathered specifically to hurt me. Information that was accurate. If the truth hurts your business, maybe you should reconsider your business model." Dax's hands clenched into fists. "You think you're clever, don't you? Hiding behind anonymous complaints and leaked documents. Too much of a coward to confront me directly." I'm confronting you now, and I brought the documents with me if you'd like to review them. I pulled out a folder containing printouts of everything I'd sent to his clients and the Better Business Bureau. Dax grabbed it and flipped through the pages, his face growing redder with each sheet. "These are private communications," he said finally. "You had no right to access these. Actually, I didn't access anything. Your former clients provided these after I asked them about their experiences with Palmer Digital Solutions. Turns out, when you ask people direct questions about their business relationships, they're usually happy to share details. You manipulated them. I informed them. There's a difference, though I can see how you might have trouble recognizing it." Dax threw the folder at my feet, scattering papers across the wet pavement. "This is about Vanessa. You're using my business to get back at her for leaving you." "Vanessa hasn't left me. She's been cheating on me while pretending our marriage was fine. There's a difference there, too. She's unhappy. She's been unhappy for years, but she was too kind to hurt your feelings by asking for a divorce." I almost laughed. "Kind? Dax, she's been lying to me for months, using our joint finances to fund her affair and planning to blindside me with divorce papers as soon as she got her promotion. That's not kindness. That's cowardice. She loves me. She loves the idea of you. The successful entrepreneur, the sophisticated businessman who understands her ambitions. Unfortunately for both of you, that person doesn't actually exist." Dax stepped even closer, close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with stress sweat. "You're going to regret this." "Am I? What are you going to do, Dax? Beat me up? Call the police? Sue me for telling the truth about your business practices?" "I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. Vindictive, petty, obsessed with a woman who doesn't want you anymore. Go ahead. I'm not the one with a reputation to protect." That stopped him. Dax Palmer's entire identity was built on image management and social media presence. He couldn't afford to get into a public mudslinging match with a blue-collar worker who had nothing to lose. "This isn't over," he said, but the threat sounded hollow. "Yes, it is. Your business is finished, your relationship with my wife is about to become very public knowledge, and your reputation in this city is destroyed. You can either accept that and move on, or you can keep fighting and make it worse. What do you want? Money? I can pay you to stop." Now I did laugh. "You think this is about money? Dax, I want you to understand something very clearly. I don't want anything from you. I want you to face the consequences of your choices. I want you to learn that other people aren't just obstacles to your success. They're human beings who deserve basic respect and honesty." "You're insane." "I'm thorough. There's a difference." Dax looked around the park, perhaps hoping for inspiration or backup. He found neither. "Vanessa was right about you," he said finally. "You are holding her back. She deserves better than a bitter, small-minded man who can't accept that she's outgrown him." "Maybe she does deserve better, but she definitely doesn't deserve you." I bent down and collected the scattered papers, taking my time. When I stood up, Dax was already walking away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Manny emerged from his observation post, grinning. "That went better than I expected," he said. "I thought he might actually try to hit you." "He's not the type. All image, no substance." "So what's next?" I looked at the folder in my hands, thinking about Vanessa's panicked phone call and her desperate offer to give me anything I wanted in the divorce. Next, I finished what I started. The Riverside Inn was exactly the kind of place Vanessa and Dax would choose for their secret meetings. Upscale enough to make them feel sophisticated, but not so exclusive that they'd run into anyone from their professional circles. I sat in the lobby at 7 p.m. on a Thursday, reading a newspaper and waiting. They arrived separately, as I'd expected. Vanessa first, looking around nervously before taking a seat at the bar. Dax 10 minutes later, approaching her with the casual confidence of a man who thought he'd successfully intimidated his rival into submission. I watched them for a few minutes, noting the body language. Vanessa was tense, constantly checking her phone and glancing toward the entrance. Dax was trying to project calm authority, but his hands shook slightly as he ordered a drink. They were discussing me. I could tell by the way Vanessa gestured and the way Dax's jaw tightened, probably debating whether our confrontation at the park had ended the threat or escalated it. They were about to find out. I approached their table, pulling up a chair before either of them could object. "Mind if I join you? I was in the neighborhood." Vanessa's face went white. "Eli, what are you doing here?" "Having a drink, same as you." I signaled the waitress. "Bourbon, neat, please." Dax leaned forward, trying to look threatening. "We're having a private conversation. About me, I'm guessing. Seems like I should be included." "You need to leave," Vanessa said. "Now. Actually, I think you both need to hear what I have to say. It'll save time later." The waitress brought my bourbon. I took a sip, savoring the burn, then pulled out my phone. "I've been busy today," I said. "Made some interesting discoveries." I showed them the screen, a news article from the Business Journal. The headline read, "Local marketing firm under investigation for fraudulent practices." Dax grabbed the phone, reading frantically. How did they... Turns out, when you file a detailed complaint with the Better Business Bureau, they actually investigate. And when they find evidence of systematic fraud, they contact law enforcement. I retrieved my phone. The article mentions that several clients are considering civil suits for damages. "This is harassment," Vanessa said. "You're systematically destroying our lives because you can't accept that our marriage is over." "Your marriage has been over for months," Dax added. "You just refuse to see it." I nodded thoughtfully. "You're probably right. The marriage was over the moment Vanessa decided to start lying to me, the moment she chose to cheat instead of having an honest conversation about her feelings." "So why are you doing this?" Vanessa demanded. "Why can't you just let us be happy?" "Because happiness built on deception doesn't last. Because you both need to understand that your choices have consequences. And because I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter." I pulled out a manila envelope and placed it on the table between us. "What's that?" Dax asked. "Copies of everything I've sent to various interested parties. Your clients, Vanessa's HR department, the Business Journal, the Better Business Bureau." I opened the envelope, revealing a thick stack of documents. Text messages, email threads, financial records, hotel receipts, a complete timeline of your affair, including dates, locations, and expenses. Vanessa's hands started shaking. "You can't... Your job is already in jeopardy. The VP promotion you were so excited about, they've put that on hold pending an internal review of your professional conduct. Apparently, having an affair with someone in your business network raises questions about your judgment and ethics." "How do you know that?" "Because I called your boss and expressed concern about some rumors I'd heard. Told him I was worried about my wife's reputation being damaged by association with Palmer Digital Solutions, given the recent news coverage." Dax slammed his hand on the table. "You vindictive piece of..." "Careful," I interrupted. "We're in public, and I'm recording this conversation." I showed them my phone again, the voice recorder app clearly visible. "Anything you say here could end up in the wrong hands." They both fell silent, staring at the phone like it was a loaded weapon. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "Vanessa, you're going to file for divorce tomorrow. No fault, 50-50 split of assets, clean break. No alimony, no drawn-out negotiations, no attempts to claim you deserve more because of your career prospects. And if I don't? Then I release everything to your parents, your coworkers, and every contact in your professional network. I'm sure they'd be fascinated to read your text messages about how pathetic your husband is and how you can't wait to upgrade to someone more suitable." Vanessa's face crumpled. "Those messages were private. They were taken out of context." "Context is overrated. People will draw their own conclusions." I turned to Dax. "As for you, I'd suggest leaving town. Your business is finished here, and your reputation won't recover. Find somewhere else to start over, and maybe this time try building something legitimate instead of scamming small business owners." "You can't force me to leave." "I can't force you to do anything, but I can make staying here very unpleasant. Your landlord is already asking questions about your ability to pay rent, given the recent developments. Your remaining clients are reviewing their contracts, and I hear the district attorney's office is considering whether your business practices constitute criminal fraud." "You're bluffing." I shrugged. "Maybe. Are you willing to bet your freedom on it?" The silence stretched out, broken only by the ambient noise of the hotel bar. Other patrons were starting to notice our table. 3 people locked in an intense, whispered conversation that radiated tension and drama. Finally, Vanessa spoke. "What do you get out of this, Eli? What's the point of destroying everything we've built?" "I'm not destroying anything. I'm revealing what was already there. Your marriage to me was a lie, Dax's business was a scam, and your relationship with each other was built on mutual selfishness and disrespect for other people. So this is justice? This is making things right? This is consequences. This is what happens when you treat people like they're disposable." I finished my bourbon and stood up. "You have 24 hours to file the divorce papers, Vanessa. After that, everything goes public." "Eli, wait." She grabbed my arm. "Please. We can work something out. We can find a solution that doesn't destroy everyone involved." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then at her face. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I'd married 7 years ago. Vulnerable, uncertain, human. Then I remembered the hotel receipts, the whispered phone calls, the months of lies and manipulation. "You should have thought about that before you decided I didn't matter," I said, gently removing her hand. "Now you get to live with the choices you made." I left them sitting at the table, staring at the envelope full of evidence. As I walked through the lobby, I could hear Vanessa crying and Dax's voice raised in angry whispers. Outside, the rain had started again. I stood under the hotel's awning for a moment, breathing the clean air and feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. My phone buzzed with a text from Manny. "How did it go?" I typed back, "It's finished." And it was. Not just the confrontation, but the entire situation. The marriage, the deception, the pretense that any of us could go back to the way things were before. Tomorrow, Vanessa would file for divorce. Dax would start making plans to leave town. Kira would find new friends to manipulate and new schemes to enable. And I would start rebuilding my life on a foundation of honesty instead of lies. I walked to my truck, got in, and drove home through the rain. The apartment felt different now. Not like a shared space full of secrets and tension, but like a temporary shelter that would soon be just a memory. I poured myself another bourbon and sat by the window, watching the storm. Lightning illuminated the river, revealing the currents and obstacles usually hidden beneath the surface. Some floors, once damaged, couldn't be repaired. Sometimes you had to tear everything out and start over with new materials, but that was okay. I was good at building things from scratch. My phone rang. Vanessa calling from the hotel. "The papers will be filed tomorrow," she said without preamble. 50-50 split, no alimony, clean break, just like you wanted. "Good. I hope you're satisfied. You've gotten your revenge." I considered that. This wasn't about revenge, Vanessa. This was about respect. You never respected me enough to be honest about your feelings, and you never respected our marriage enough to end it honorably. Now you understand what it feels like to have your life controlled by someone else's decisions. I understand that you're crueler than I ever imagined. I'm exactly as cruel as the situation required. Nothing more, nothing less. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat by the window until the storm passed, thinking about the future. Tomorrow I would start looking for a new apartment, something smaller and simpler. I would focus on my work, maybe expand the business, take on bigger projects. I would rebuild my life without lies, without deception, without people who saw me as an obstacle to their happiness rather than a human being deserving of basic honesty and respect. The rain stopped. The river reflected the city lights, calm and clear. I finished my bourbon and went to bed, sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. 6 months later, I was installing Brazilian cherry hardwood in a penthouse downtown when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Eli Granger. "Mr. Granger, this is Jennifer Walsh from Walsh & Associates. I represent Vanessa Granger in her divorce proceedings." I set down my nail gun. I thought the divorce was finalized months ago. "It was. I'm calling about a different matter. Mrs. Granger is considering filing a civil suit against you for intentional infliction of emotional distress and interference with business relationships." I almost laughed. "Is she now?" "She believes you engaged in a systematic campaign to damage her reputation and career prospects out of spite following the end of your marriage. Her reputation and career prospects were damaged by her own choices. I just made sure the relevant parties had accurate information about those choices. Mr. Granger, I should warn you that this type of lawsuit can be very expensive to defend. Even if you ultimately prevail, my client is prepared to offer a settlement. No. I'm sorry? No settlement. If Vanessa wants to sue me, tell her to bring it on. I kept copies of everything, including recordings of our conversations where she admitted to adultery and financial deception. I'm sure those would be very interesting exhibits in a civil trial." There was a long pause. "I'll convey your response to my client. You do that, and counselor. Tell Vanessa that some floors, once torn up, can't be put back together. She made her choice, and now she gets to live with the consequences." I hung up and got back to work. The Brazilian cherry was beautiful. Rich, dark wood with a grain pattern that would only improve with age. Honest materials, honest work, honest results. My phone buzzed with a text from Manny. "Drinks tonight? Got some news to share?" I texted back, "Sure, the usual place. Actually, let's try somewhere new. I hear Bella Vista has great cocktails." I grinned. Bella Vista, the Italian restaurant that had been one of Dax Palmer's former clients. The owner, Maria, had become something of a friend after our initial conversation about Palmer Digital Solutions. She'd even recommended me to several other business owners who needed renovation work. It turned out that honesty was good for business. Who would have thought? I finished the flooring installation as the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the polished wood. The penthouse owner, Mrs. Chen, walked through the space with obvious satisfaction. "Beautiful work," she said. "You really know what you're doing." "Thank you. It's all about using quality materials and taking time to do things right." "I'll definitely recommend you to my friends. Do you have business cards?" I handed her one of the new cards I'd had printed. Simple, professional, with my name and contact information. No fancy graphics or marketing slogans, just the basics. "Granger Flooring and Restoration," she read. "I like it. Straightforward." "That's the idea." I packed up my tools and headed to Bella Vista. The restaurant was busy, filled with couples and families enjoying authentic Italian cuisine in a warm, welcoming atmosphere. Maria greeted me at the door with a smile. "Eli, your friend is already here, at the bar." I found Manny nursing a beer and chatting with the bartender about boxing. He looked up when I approached, grinning broadly. "You look good," he said. "Relaxed." "I feel good. What's the news you wanted to share?" "Two things. First, the gym is expanding. I'm buying the building next door, adding more equipment, maybe some group fitness classes." "That's great, Manny. Congratulations." "Second thing is more interesting. Remember that reporter who did the story on Palmer Digital Solutions?" "Yeah. She's working on a follow-up piece about business ethics in the digital marketing industry. Apparently Palmer wasn't the only scammer in town. There's a whole network of these guys overcharging small businesses for substandard services. I ordered a bourbon, considering this. Good for her. Someone should expose that. The interesting part is what happened to your boy Palmer. Word is he tried to set up shop in Portland, but someone, no idea who, sent his new potential clients copies of the news coverage from here. His reputation followed him. Consequences have a way of catching up with people. They do indeed." Manny raised his beer. "To consequences. To consequences." We drank, watching the restaurant's evening crowd through the bar mirror. Families celebrating anniversaries, friends catching up over wine, couples on first dates nervously navigating conversation, real people living honest lives, building genuine relationships based on mutual respect and shared experiences. "Any regrets?" Manny asked. I thought about it. "About the divorce? No. About how I handled things afterward? No. Vanessa and Dax made their choices, and they got exactly what they deserved." "What about moving forward? You thinking about dating again?" "Eventually, when I meet someone who values honesty over convenience. That might take a while." "I'm a patient man, and I'm in no hurry to repeat past mistakes." My phone buzzed with an email notification. Another potential client, referred by Mrs. Chen, a restaurant owner who needed new flooring after a kitchen fire. Business was good, better than it had ever been when I was distracted by a failing marriage and a dishonest wife. Turns out when you focus on doing quality work instead of managing relationship drama, people notice. "I should head home," I said, finishing my bourbon. "Early day tomorrow." "New job?" "New job. Restaurant renovation downtown. The owner heard about my work from one of Palmer's former clients." Manny laughed. "Funny how these things work out." Hilarious. I drove home through the city streets, past the hotel where I'd confronted Vanessa and Dax, past the building where Palmer Digital Solutions used to operate, past the apartment complex where Kira had lived before moving back in with her parents to save money. The landscape of my revenge had become just another part of the city, places where things had happened but no longer held any emotional weight. I'd moved on, built something new, created a life based on my own values instead of someone else's expectations. At home, a modest 2-bedroom apartment with original hardwood floors that I'd restored myself, I poured a final drink and sat on the balcony looking out over the river. The water moved steadily toward the ocean, carrying away debris and sediment, constantly renewing itself. Some things could be cleaned and restored, others had to be swept away to make room for something better. I raised my glass to the night sky, to the future, to the satisfaction of a job well done and a score finally settled. Tomorrow would bring new projects, new challenges, new opportunities to build something lasting and honest. Tonight, I was content to sit in the darkness and enjoy the peace that came from knowing I'd stood up for myself when it mattered most. Some floors, once damaged, couldn't be repaired, but the foundation underneath, that could always be rebuilt, stronger than before. I finished my drink and went inside, already planning the next day's work. There was always another floor to install, another space to transform, another chance to create something beautiful from raw materials and honest effort. The past was finished, the future was waiting, and I was ready to build it right this time.